I'm gonna shower. I'll be right back. Oh. Yeah, it's cider. That's in English, so I understand it. I don't know the rest. I think that's an apple. Or, yeah, that right there, that word. Okay. Today, what we're going to be talking about is 3 things that I've watched. Uh, over the past time that I haven't made a video. I'm gonna try and make this a series where I talk about 3 things that I've watched over a period of time. I don't know what that period is gonna be, maybe a month, maybe a week, maybe a few days. It just depends on when I wanna not be lazy anymore. But we're gonna talk about 3 things. That number may vary in the future, but I'm trying to keep it to 3 things. So let me know if you guys like this. I don't know if the number matters, but let me know if you guys like this format at the very least. It mostly is just because I suck at structuring videos and really anything, so I'm just kind of flying by the hip. That's not a thing people say. I'm kind of shooting from the hip, flying by the seat of my pants, flying by the... so in this video, we're gonna talk about 3 things. And those 3 things in this particular video are gonna be maybe in this order. Made in Abyss, the new manga volume just came out in English, and I can't really read Japanese. Silo, a TV series on Apple TV that a lot of people watching this video probably already watched because it was pretty popular, but I'm gonna talk about it because I just watched it and I thought it was pretty good. My finger is huge. And the 3rd thing, Trigun Stampede, which a lot of you, based off of my channel name and the content of my previous video, have probably already watched. But that's okay because again, I just watched it like a month ago and I thought it was really good. The first thing we're going to talk about today is the newest volume of Made in Abyss that has been released in English. It is, I believe, volume 12. It's pretty good. It's definitely up there. It's a very good volume, a lot of good chapters in it. There's a flashback arc in the middle of it that I thought was particularly interesting. But I'm going to be very honest right now. I feel like he's just kind of in like an interim phase of the manga, and I think he's just he's trying to push the manga somewhere else, and it's not quite there yet. He's basically setting up, if you will, for the next major arc called the Curse Fleet arc, which seemingly is going to be very cool. It focuses on a new white whistle named Srajo, probably because it's Japanese. You gotta roll that R. But yeah, Srajo seems interesting. And a lot of it seems. I'm kind of cagey about it because it's hard because it's really interesting, and I'm very excited to see what happens going forward. But right now, it's literally like what I'm pretty sure they call it in the manga is the prologue to the Curse Fleet arc. It's like, yeah, I want to give it a lot of credit, but I can't right now because it's not complete. The story we need to give time for the arc to percolate a little bit, and it's not there yet. What we did get is interesting, and like I said, Sraj was really cool, got some weird hair stuff going on, like Ozen the Immovable. Pictured here, that I like the weird hair stuff. Wish I want there to be more of an explanation for it, but we're not quite there yet. I guess it's just the Abyss does stuff to people's hair. Another thing that happened in this chapter, which is Fabuta, who is a new character in Made in Abyss and had a huge and incredible arc, probably top 2 arcs in Made in Abyss, definitely. I don't think it's my favorite personally, but it's a lot of people's favorite. The Golden Village of the Scorching Sun or something like that. I can't remember the full name of the arc. It's got a very fancy name, but a very traumatic arc, a lot of deep, probably the darkest, not even probably, is the darkest arc in Made in Abyss. It is the darkest arc in Made in Abyss. More grammatically correct for my Nazis out there. That sounded bad. I meant grammar Nazis, not actual Nazis. So Abida from the previous arc is now seemingly going to become a recurring character, maybe potentially a main character. Based on how much Tsukushi-san likes to draw her, I'm guessing that she will be around for a while, which is cool because I like Faputa. I think she's got a very interesting character. I like her backstory, and I like her as a character because she's fucking badass. Basically adds another like fighter to the team, so there seems like he's setting up for more battles in the future. Also, the fact that it's called the Cursed Fleet arc, the next major arc that is, likely going to be some war because fleets go to war. So the flashback arc in this volume centered on two new characters. This older dude and this younger girl. Again, I don't know anything about them. Even in their flashback arc, it was neat, but it's nothing like, well, really, we never really get much in terms of the flashback arcs in Made in Abyss. We got more granted during the city, village of the Scorching Sun, or whatever it's called, with Faputa's mother and their friend, and like the sages and everything, but it's still not, it's not the focus, which I appreciate personally because I don't think flashbacks are the most interesting thing, but when you make it the entire subject of your manga chapter, or volume rather, your manga volume, it can feel like it's being stretched a little thin, if you will. We got to see other adventurers going through the sixth layer, which was cool. I did appreciate that. Or fifth layer? God, I don't remember now. Capital of them returned. And so that was neat, seeing the perils of that layer from another person's perspective. We got to see a guy die just by, starvation, essentially, because he got stuck, which I always love. I like when Made in Abyss plays around with the way people die, because that is, I think, one of Tsukushi's strongest abilities is to give people an unexpected death. Which might sound a little weird, but I feel like, for example, in like Lord of the Rings, or even Game of Thrones doesn't do it quite as much, but a lot of fantasy stories from the West will give characters a very like ceremonial death, if you will. They will kill them in essentially the most like epic fashion possible, or at least they'll give them a meaning to their death, right? And I feel like Tsukushi, essentially, his task with this entire story, and of course it's not always this way, but I feel like most of the time he succeeds in this, which is that the Abyss does not, it feels alive because he doesn't give people a ceremonious death. He forces upon them, I think ceremonious is a word, I hope it is, he forces upon them what nature forces upon us. Just death, point blank. Like, the people who have died in Made in Abyss thus far, most of the time, a lot of the time they can be like eaten by animals or, killed by other cave raiders, but usually it's not like a, stabbed through the heart. They usually for some people they get eaten from the inside out. And even then, I will say a lot of the time, it's not epic, but it is grotesque, which gives it a certain weight. And the death we got to see in this chapter was essentially, it was about as normal of a death as he's done thus far, and I really loved it. And he gave meaning to the death by showing us the flashback of that character, and I thought that was really interesting. Personally, I think he does have a talent for doing unexpected things like that. And I like that. I think that a lot of people, though, will come in and say, oh, this is kind of boring. It's like a whole chapter about his death, a guy we don't even know yet. And to a degree, I would agree with that. Yeah, I wouldn't say no, that we've gotten basically little to no information about this man who they showed 10 pages of, which is a lot for a manga volume. They showed 10 pages of really graphic detail of his starved and emaciated body. That really wasn't that emaciated. I guess I should take that back, because that was kind of part of the chapter, is that he looked like he had died recently, but whatever. What else to say about this chapter? I don't know. I like it. What a good video. Wow, yeah, just it's cool. I don't know. I like it, but like I said, it's got its flaws. It's not his best work. It's pretty, but again, all of them are pretty. and it's not like prettier than the rest. It's not, yeah, it's hard, right? Because you come off a high, like the capital, like the village of the scorching sun or whatever, and it's hard to come down off of that because so much has happened, and it's like he kind of needed to do it. I feel like he kind of needed to bring it back down, but it's rough. It's I think it's a double-edged sword either way. Good, not like good. You know, not 2 thumbs up, but like 1 thumb up. You know, it's good. It's a good chapter. You know, he's clearly gearing up for more, and I'm excited to see that more. It hasn't made me more or less excited because I was already extremely hyped for what he got coming out next. And so yeah, that's essentially it on Made in Abyss. Next, do a fade or something there, right? I don't know, something cool, something that I think is cool. Maybe put like a motorcycle like going by. I don't know, man. That'd be cool though, like that, like that, and then it's next time I talk about Silo. This is an Apple TV series, Apple TV Plus series. It doesn't really matter. Based on a novel by a guy who I don't care about the name of, and it was pretty freaking awesome, dude. I'm not gonna say pretty, fucking awesome. I didn't really think about it until recently when I watched Silo, because I was looking for a word to describe what it was and what I loved about it. But for anybody who doesn't know, retrofuturism is essentially any time a media property takes an old sci-fi aesthetic and uses it as a placeholder for what the future could be like. So, for example, like somebody who recreates Star Wars and keeps all of like the old timey like boops and bops, like button computers and stuff. You know, the big bulky armors and things, and that's their version of the future. Silo is that in droves. A little setup in case you haven't seen it. I'm not going to go too far into this because it seems pretty popular from what I can tell. And so I don't want to like delve too deep into the storyline. And especially if you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it for yourself as well. Planning no spoilers. I'll try and cut out if I talk about spoilers. I tend to. So we're going to do our best to not. But if we do, I'm sorry. But please go watch it anyways. I mean, it's so good. So yeah, Silo is the story of a giant underground megastructure and the people who live inside of it. These people are basically just normal. There's nothing weird about it. There's no like space aliens or anything. They're just people living in an underground megastructure that functions like essentially a city. It's essentially a giant, as they understand it, fallout shelter. Because the world outside has gone bad. Something happened, like a nuclear war, epidemic, something, and the world is dead. And so all they have is the silo. And that is essentially the setup for the story. The silo, the technology within the silo, I feel like is the highlight of everything because they have essentially degraded like not hundreds of years, but it's like basically 60s era technology and this giant megastructure that shouldn't exist, right? It's a super futuristic thing that shouldn't make any sense, and there's reasons and things for it to exist that honestly haven't really been explored yet, which I love. But yeah, general idea for the technology that is that it's like not even 60s. I would go further. It's like 90s era technology. You know, they have like computers that they can use and that they have like databases and things and files. You know, there's no touch screens, right? Maybe like I would go so far as to say early 2000s era like computing, but even then feels like a bit of a stretch because a lot of their operating systems are like the old green and black screen, which is really awesome to see. The whole place runs off this old like steampunky, like not even steam, like diesel punk-esque generator at the bottom of the complex. I think there's like, I don't know, there's like 100 floors. It's like a mile or some shit down and up, or it's probably more than that. It's huge though, right? To like traverse the silo takes people like days because there's no elevators. Because, and this is a big point throughout the story, technology more advanced than what they already have, or what is doled out by the government of the silo, is considered forbidden. Nobody knows why, but they don't like to question, because to question the rules, I believe they call them relics. You're not allowed to have any relics that aren't authorized by the police, essentially, of the silo. Actually, they literally are police. The silo itself is divided, like they have a sheriff, they have police stations on every level. It's essentially created as a type of like American society, with a judicial branch, an executive branch being the mayor of the silo, and then like the military, I guess. They don't really have like a legislative branch. They just essentially have a judicial, executive, and a military branch. Military being the police force. Anything that is deemed ironically older than the silo, but more advanced than the technology that they have, is deemed forbidden. They are stuck in this kind of like halfway point between eras, like 90s and 2000s. The main bulk of the story is deep, like philosophical conversations about life and freedom and safety, and all these different topics that we struggle with all the time. It's clearly written from the point of view of somebody who is living in our modern day and very fatalist world. For me, obviously, like I said, the highlight is the aesthetic, all these like old like machine parts and like bolts and bolts and pieces of metal as like people's houses. Like it's like it's so cool. I love that. I love like the metal plating and stuff. And then it's like you see like a array of computers inside of this like hovel that's been bolted together. Another important aspect of it is that everybody in the silo is pretty happy for the most part. You know, there wouldn't be much of a story if there wasn't conflict, of course, but most of the people are pretty content because they have everything taken care of. Miraculously, they're able to grow everything they need inside of the silo. The generator pretty much lasts forever. They have to fix it at a certain point in the story, but the generator itself is pretty miraculous in that it runs this entire mega structure pretty flawlessly. There's this constant like, it's very clear that the technology load that these people are sitting on is very advanced, even beyond what we can create. But even like, this is one of the coolest parts for me personally, is that even though like it is seemingly more advanced than stuff we can create, a lot of the tech, like the relics that they find, are basic things that we have access to in our everyday lives. It's this weird kind of juxtaposition that I think is really cool, because you have this thing that should not exist, the silo, with an immortal generator. Oh yeah, that's important to point out, is that the silo has existed for like at least 100 years at this point without dying, which is crazy. And it seems to be thriving, like it's getting better and better and better at being like a cohesive system. The technology being the way that it is, it doesn't make any sense, right? And that is like a central mystery of the series that, again, still has not been fully explored yet, as it shouldn't be, because it's the first season of the show. The technological advancement of the people in this world is never as it seems. At every turn, it defies you. So I guess when I said earlier that it's not the center stage, I kind of lied. It kind of is. I mean, because like everything revolves around whether technology should or should not be allowed to some degree. And like I said, it has everything to do with like the safety and freedom of the people in the silo at every turn. But it's like you never get, you never feel like you have a concrete understanding of the era of technology that the silo exists within. And I'm not saying that it's like whether the actual era of the world, because that's kind of irrelevant. It's more like what era have the people in this world been bumped back to because of whatever happened in the outside. Even when they show their computers that they work on, it's pretty limited. And the stuff that they're able to do on them seems kind of crazy for, like what I said earlier, an operating system working off of that old school tech. Because it's all very smooth. And if you know anything about old computers, they're anything but smooth. If you watch any footage of people playing around with them, you can tell. I mean, you gotta press a button like a million times to get somewhere, and they only have a few clicks, right? And so it's simplified, but that doesn't mean that it isn't like still advanced technology, which I think is so cool. It's like if you took the concept of Aliens or Star Wars and the technology that they had in those films and stretched it and built a story around that, just the technology itself and the meaning of having that technology, you would have Silo. Like, that's essentially what it is. And I just think that is, it's special. It is. Because there's not a lot of shows in the modern day and age that play around with retrofuturism, let alone to the extent that Silo does. It's so neat to me to have a story utterly confound me with technology. It's like if you've ever seen an old schematic for like an analog machine, like an old school telephone. That's what Silo feels like to me. It feels like looking at that, or it's like looking at a room full of typewriters. And seeing a bunch of people typing on them. It might sound like a weird example, but trust me, go look up people typing on typewriters. It is weird because you can't type like we type on computers. It's a completely alien experience to us because you have to be so much more careful. Yeah, I mean, that's what I think a Silo is. Like, it's just that. There's not much else to it. The final thing I was going to talk about, and in a way I've kind of like curated this because Trigun Stampede and Made in Abyss both have connections to this like retrofuturist idea, because Made in Abyss, while it's a fantasy story, they don't have outright magic, and it's mostly steampunk. And so they use balloons to get around and use balloons to send mail to people from the bottom of the abyss. Like, their culture is built around this pit, so they weren't able to advance to like our level. So it's kind of in a way retrofuturist, but it's not a perfect example, but it kind of works. Trigun Stampede is 100% connected because it is also retrofuturistic. Right out of the gate, they tell you, like within the first episode or two, that it is the remnants of humanity have left Earth because of some kind of cataclysm or something. A catastrophic malfunction happens on their ship, and they crash land. And so they essentially have to pick up the pieces on this arid dust ball called No Man's Land, because of course it's called No Man's Land. That is literally the name of the planet. And they're forced to create a civilization on this desert world with very little water or abilities to sustain life. Lucky for them, though, they have what is left of the ship, and these things called, what are they called? I don't know, they're called like seeds or something. They're these large tubes, plants, they call them plants, that's right. They're these large tubes with balls in them that essentially provide energy. And seemingly they provide both energy and water, like they can purify water sources. They just are kind of like a magic do anything tool. Do anything generator rather, that can create food and life and like actual energy, power plant energy, to help people sustain themselves on this dead world. That, of course, isn't so dead. Then people would just be dead already upon landing. There are these life forms called worms on No Man's Land, and they are basically just worms of all shapes and sizes. Some fly, some don't. They're all, they're, of course, watching this. You probably do. You probably watch this already, but they're, bugs. There's other creatures on the planet too, like giant birds and things, but the worms are the main one. And most of the story just revolves around this guy named Vash the Stampede, Trigun Stampede, who is a gunslinger who ironically does not like to kill people. And the entire conflict of the series is him having to fight off bounty hunters who are trying to collect the bounty on his head, because I might have said he's a bounty hunter. He's an outlaw. From pretty much every person in No Man's Land, they all want him dead, at least all the important people who can make bounties happen. And that is the central conflict, him having to fight people off without killing them in a world full of death that has reverted to essentially cowboy times. That's the retrofuturism you're looking at with it. Desert planet cowboy world with like weird cyborg people and strange tech that they shouldn't have, but they do. But not only shouldn't have, weird applications of strange tech. like just creating bigger guns, basically. It's like a lot of it is just reverting back to people's primal carnal desires. And but yeah, it's just like cowboy cyberpunk fantasy world. It's really cool. I like it a lot. I like the aesthetic a lot. Like I said, a lot of this is about the aesthetic for me, especially when it comes to this show, because it is all about the animation. Key thing to note about Trigun Stampede, it is CGI, and so a lot of people are going to be immediately thrown off by that, and I would say don't be, because it is some of the best CGI you'll ever see. Don't give me that dumb Pixar bullshit. This is real big boy, big man shit. This is that CGI that your mother wouldn't let you see, that your mother don't watch, that your mother don't want you watching, because it's super violent. While Vash doesn't want to kill people, they still want to kill him. And so he gets into a lot of fights, and a lot of people shoot at each other, and a lot of people die. And it's very violent. And it's awesome. Try gun. So there's a lot of shooting in it. A lot of gun fights between cowboys, and that's cool. A lot of cool sequences of people flipping guns around in cool ways, like like that, except they're real guns, and it's cool. But yeah, it's fun. It's just another fun show. Another fun show. It's really the only fun show out of a lot that I'm talking about today. The others are very depressing. Dragon Stampede is very fun. There are very depressing bits, but overall, it's like I would call it more of a comedy than a drama. Also, it's based off an old 90s cartoon, but we're not going to talk about that because I tried watching it and that's boring. Most people agree that the old 90s cartoon has not aged well, and I would agree because it is not the best, but it is still good. It's just not the best. It's good. It's still all right. I wouldn't say good. It's okay. Quality is dipped, and quality of anime has gotten better since then, so it's kind of rough. But this is a really good response to quality anime getting better, and Trigun has really met it. I feel like it's met the new expectation. Trigun Stampede, rather. There's a lot of good fight scenes and stuff, but I really want you to watch it for yourself. Just know that it's like a crazy cowboy shootout slugfest. With a lot of violence and dope-ass fight sequences. Don't be thrown off by the CG because it can be a little jarring at first, but you will get used to it, and it's not that bad. Like it really it's really good actually. I really recommend Trigun Stampede. I really recommend Silo, and I really recommend the new chapter of Man Abyss, and all of Man Abyss for that matter. But this one was the most recent release, and I had to talk about it. But yeah, I know this was a bit of a shotgun video. I'm currently traveling, as you can see. This is not my normal room. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know it's only my second video. I don't know why I'm acting like I post a lot more, but hey, ding, ding, ding. This is the goal, is to post a lot more. I'd like to make this channel a real thing. So please subscribe. Please hop along the I Like Cartoons train. It's not what we're going to call it, but for now, I'm too tired and lazy to think of something better, but, this is the outro. I don't know how. That's the end of it. You want some bread? There you go.